Anyway, afterwards, you've got this really kind of possessive air. So in 36, this role reversal, that moment she was mine, mine, fair. And so you've got repetition of mine. And it is also, and I'm going to spell this wrong, probably, we'll see, possessive. So repetition of a possessive adjective. And so he is absolutely really pleased that she has devoted herself, and it's almost as if, you know, he's leading her around now. He's actually the one that is actually in charge of their relationship. Thank God for that, because obviously he's sick of being Porphyria's lover, and he wanted her to be his lover. So in this case, repetition of the possessive adjective shows that he is now in charge of this relationship, and he is going to become your active participant. He's going to be the person that is in charge. So if you remember a long time ago, she is the one that is the active character. If we can find it. I can't find it. But she's the one that is active, and all of a sudden, he is now your active character. So she was making up a cheerless grey. I found it. It's that one. She was active. She's making up the cheerless great, and now all of a sudden she was him. So you've got like a little bit of a role reverse, and he's going to actually take the active part in this poem now. Afterwards, you've got line 37, perfectly pure and good. At this moment in her life, she is perfectly pure and good. You've got some nice alliteration there. But in this case, I wouldn't even mention that. I think it's just a little bit of context. The fact is, she's perfectly pure. She hasn't sinned yet. She hasn't had any thoughts of any kind of desire, no sexual thoughts at all. And this is what he wants to preserve. So, yeah, he's about to kill her, but he wants to kill her while she is perfectly pure and good. And this goes back to a bit of context, a bit of like idealism, I suppose. He doesn't really want her to live, to experience any kind of desire, and therefore he wants to kill her before she experiences any kind of sin. And so when, in the next one, you've got 3 times her little throat around and strangled her, no pain felt she. Yeah, he kills her, of course he does. But he wants to kill her while she is still perfectly pure. So in this case, I would suggest he kills her before she has any opportunity to feel desire. And instead, he wants to preserve her purity. So basically, she can die while she's still in a state of grace, while she's still virtuous, basically. And that's his desire. So he looks at her and he doesn't want her to sin. He doesn't want her to actually experience any kind of desire. And as such, he kills her before she can. And let's see how she's going to respond. So, okay, you've got in this one, he wraps her hair 3 times around her throat. So 3 times her little throat around and strangled her. No pain felt she. I've marked out she's got, I've got a little bit of caesura here. A caesura, this full stop here, which creates a kind of pause between this line. So it's not punctuation at the end of the line, it's in the middle of the line. And it seems like really quite final. So in this case, caesura is used, which is there. And it gives it gives the deed a sense of finality. There's no going back after this. So, and strangled her, and that's it. It stops there. And then he moves on. No pain felt she. Well, according to him, of course. But Caesura, that's it. It's a stop. The full stop represents her death, and it is sudden, and it's harsh, okay? So that's probably worded a little bit nicer than what I've written down. But that's line 40, 41. Kills her. Poor girl. Afterwards then, really nice simile, and it's a really interesting simile as well. So you've got, as a bud that holds a bee, as a shot bud that holds a bee, I warily ope her lids. She's dead, fine, and he's now a little bit wary, he's a little bit worried because he's killed her and he wants to see whether or not there's any emotion lurking behind those closed eyelids. And so, as a shut bud that holds a bee, if you imagine you are opening up this flower, this bud here, and inside you know there's a bee. Yeah, of course, it's wondering how on earth it got into a closed flower bud, because that's really kind of confusing me as well. But inside the flower, you're going to have like one of two things. You're either going to have, I don't know, the threat of a sting, or the sweet honey. So, in this case, he's opening the eyes and he's going to experience one thing. He knows he's going to experience one thing, and it's either going to be a sting from the bee, or it's going to be honey from the same bee. And so he's a little bit tentative, he's a little bit nervous, because actually he doesn't know what he's going to see. If he opens her eyes, it can sting him because she was clearly upset about him killing her, and that would be the threat of the sting, that would be her stinging him. Or sweet honey in terms of a bee making something positive. Well, in this case, he can open her eyes and he can see that she's happy that he's killed her. She's happy to die in a state of grace and being pure. And so he's wary about this, but it's a really nice simile to show that he's not sure. And he's a little bit conflicted. He's thinking, oh, I don't know, is she going to appreciate what I've done for her or not? So the simile shows how tentative he is. He doesn't know if she appreciates what he has done for her. So, if he opens her eyes and she looks upset, that's a sting. And if he opens her eyes and he sees them happy, then obviously that's like the honey, isn't it? Okay, so a really nice simile to show how conflicted it is, how tentative, how worried he is or nervous he is about opening those eyelids and seeing her expression, seeing what emotions went through her at the moment when he killed her. So, there you go. Afterwards, what does he find? Well, laugh the blue eyes without a stain. So in this case, personification. Yeah, eyes don't laugh. Of course they don't laugh. But in this case, he is happy too, as she clearly is happy about him killing her. Yeah, so laughing, obviously, really happy thing. And in this case, without a stain, you can suggest a few things for without a stain. Well, in this case, you could talk about without a stain in terms of the context. So the context might be, there is no stain on her honor or her purity. She's died without any lustful thoughts, without any desire. She's died remaining a virgin in this case. Without a stain, it could be, why am I going to write this? It could be a stain. There is no tear. She is not upset. There's no tear, okay? So without a stain, it could be the fact that she is not crying, or it could be the fact that there's no stain to her honor. She hasn't had any lustful desire in her thoughts before she's died. Therefore, she's died in a really kind of pure, virtuous state. Okay. Lines 53 to 55. You've got, so glad it has its utmost will. Okay. The it, in this case, it's really objectifying her. So glad it has its utmost will, that all it scorned at once is fled, and I, its love, and gained instead. Well, look, you've got it's there, okay? And this it and is, it's the body. So these are all referring to the body. So this one, and this one are all referring to her body, and it's an object now. Not a person. But this is what she's gained. So glad it has its utmost will, that all it scorned at once is fled, and I, its love, am gained instead. So I've got your lady down here, and she's imagining opening up a great big present, and there he is inside. It's just what I always wanted, him. Okay, so she has gained him. In her death, she has gained him. And look at this, you've got an exclamation there, so you can have an exclamatory sentence. An exclamatory sentence shows he is overjoyed. And probably he is overjoyed that she is overjoyed. So, in this case, you know, he's really happy that he's given her exactly what she wants. Well, according to his view of it anyway. Afterwards, you've got, well, it mentions God. And it says, and all night long we have not stirred, and yet God has not said a word. Well, can you imagine? He kills this poor lady, strangles her with her own hair, he wraps it 3 times around her throat, and pulls so tight that she is dead. And they sit back down on this couch. He rests her head on his shoulder, and they sit there the entire night. All night long we have not stirred, and yet God has not said a word. So I pointed out here the fact that God hasn't said a word suggests some kind of moral ambiguity. He doesn't know that he's done anything wrong. Nobody's telling him he's done anything wrong. And so, as the audience, we don't know whether or not actually he has done something wrong at all. So, he would expect some kind of divine intervention. We would expect it as well, and it's not come. So, he's kind of smug at the moment. You've got a nice exclamatory sentence towards the end as well. So, in this case, it's a little bit unresolved. We don't know how to interpret the ending. We're thinking, well, has he done the right thing? Is she happy? Is God going to intervene here? We don't know. So moral ambiguity, we're not sure. And it doesn't suggest that he's right. It doesn't suggest that he's wrong at all. Good. And that's Porphyria's lover. The one thing that I will mention that is kind of mentioned in a lot of revision and guides in various different places, various different websites and sources, is that Porphyria is an illness. Well, Porphyria as an illness is not actually the right context for this poem. Porphyria was only named, the illness Porphyria was only named after this poem was written. So Porphyria was just a name back then. And so your context, well, you're probably going to tell me about the fact that he wants her to die in a perfectly pure and virtuous state before she's got any kind of lustful thoughts or feelings. You're not going to tell me about Porphyria being, well, it might be a disease, it might be a person's name, because it is just a person's name. Okay, so Porphyria was named after the poem as an illness, and Porphyria is just the person in this one.